a lot of initiatives in the past, like since lockdown, we are conducting a lot of activities. We have conducted a lot of international webinars, national webinars, roundtable virtual conferences, then FDPs, workshops for enhancing the capacity of various stakeholders in the education. So as a part of that endeavor only, the PCMA is conducting a series of lectures with the theme education for meaningful life. And today we are in the part 4. So today's theme is redefining education from new perspectives. Today we have great speakers with us, our management guru, Dr. S.C. Vaid, former Dean University Instructions, Punjab University, Chandigarh, and Dr. Pushpinder Walia Sharma, Principal DVA College, Amritsar. We welcome you, sir and ma'am, to this forum. Like people, they are keenly waiting to hear your viewpoint on this issue, which has become more relevant during this pandemic period. Like people, they are now trying to see education from different angles. So now over to Dr. Bhalla for further proceedings of the today's plans. Dr. Bhalla, please.
Thank you, Dr. Vikas, for initiating this program of today. First of all, I welcome Dr. S.C. Vaidya, former Dean, University Instructions, Punjab University, Chandigarh, and presently giving services to the SD College Management Sabha for giving his services as a General Secretary. And I also welcome Dr. Pushpinder Walia Sharma, who is a principal of BBK DAV College, Amritsar, on this very noble cause for joining us today as a part of the series which we have started, discussion on education for meaningful life. So thank you very much, sir, both of you, for joining us. So first of all, I'll be just putting some light on our program, why we have started this, and why there was a need to think about our education system today, because we are not delivering. I request Vikas Deep ji, you get all these people joining during this program now. Dr. Vikas? Dr. Vikas? Okay. So today's program.
Yes, sir, I am there. I am admitting everybody.
Okay. So today's program is aimed to look at our education system, that why it is not becoming deliverable in spite of the great efforts done by the society as well as by the government. Because I think during this pandemic situation, God has given us a time to rethink our total system. And because of the COVID-19, most of our educational institutions are closed. We are not finding ways and means to open it up, not in a position to reach out to our students. And similarly, we are not finding the solution of many issues which are encountered with this. In spite of that, there are a number of issues which has been encountered and thrown light during this period of time, and we have to redefine our education system. Here, when we talk about our education system, I think we have forgotten the meaning of our education system, which is required for making the life of the people meaningful on this earth. I hear quote Swami Vivekanand ji, who says that a man without education is only a man in name. It is the bound in duty of a man to get education, become virtuous, be free from malice, and preach for all well-being of the people, advancing the cause of rightness. So we have to become virtuous, free from any kind of malice, that desire to harm anyone, preach for all well-being of the people, and we have to fight for cause of righteousness. So here the role of the teacher need to be redefined, because Swamiji said that teacher is a person who is a wise man, never idle or lazy, not affected by pleasure or pain, profit or loss, honor or dishonor, public applause or censure, has always a firm faith in dharma and cannot be tempted by sensual objects. So therefore, we have to look it out that most of our teaching community people has entered in the teaching profession by chance and not by choice. That's why the real meaning of education is not coming out, and the type of education which we are providing to our young generation is not delivering the desired results. So when I read about the Swamiji's thinking about education, he says education must be for perfection, and he demanded a very high standard of character and conduct. He wanted to realize all round perfection. Now, when we are preparing our syllabi and we are prescribing the books to the students, Swamiji says that the books must be prescribed to the students after very careful scrutiny, but now the things are going other ways. So we need to be multi-sided curriculum. That is, we are talking in 2020 regarding choice-based credit system, but it was explained by Swami Dayanand Ji in 1882 or 1883 when he talked about education in real sense. Similarly, Swami Vivekanand led the education scenario in a very different perspective. He said the education is that which is forming character, which is giving strength of mind, which is where intellect is sharpened, where one can stand on one's feet. So these are the certain issues which need to be looked into today to define the education for living a meaningful life on this earth. We are in the race of getting the material things, but we are not getting happiness. We are not becoming a good human being. Guru Nanak Dev Ji, who is known to be founder of the Sikhism on this earth, he said education must be education for all. He talked about universal education regardless of caste, class, color, religion, ethnicity, age, or any other discrimination. So thus his idea of education is purely democratic and secular in nature. He in his writing said, Guru Jina da andala chele nahi thao. That means Guru is very important. If Guru is not strengthened, if he is not entitled, the followers will not be like that. So Vadpagi mil sangat sacha shabd visa. That means he talked about a good classroom. What kind of a class you have, with what kind of people you are getting resolved with. All these things are very important. And even in 1539, he talked about the use of mother tongue, poetry, rhymes, singing, music, listening and practicing, repetition, graphical presentation, use of letters, quantification, role of teachers, a role of class, that is Sangat, learning by questioning, role of practice, getting rid of social biases against learning. He talked about in 1539, but in now 2020, even after having so many good books, Shri Guru Granth Sahib Ji, 4 Vedas, we are not in a position to define our education today. So that is the purpose of these programs, so that we can rethink our education system, what has happened to it, so that it is not leading to living a good and happy life on this earth by our young generations. So today I have two very important and eminent speakers today. One is Dr. S.C. Vaidya, Subhash Chandra Vaidya ji, who retired as Dean University Instructions, Punjab University, Chandigarh. So working since 1972, Dr. Vaidya has a long association with Punjab University. He held so many positions like Chairman of the University Business School, Dean Faculty of Business Management, Dean University Instructions. So he holds master's and doctoral degree in commerce, having a 40 years of teaching, training, consulting and research experience in the field of management, in addition to wide-ranging academic administration. Because of his pioneering work for the promotion of management education, training and research, Punjab Commerce and Management Association presented him with Lifetime Achievement Award for the year 2010. So he is a recipient of PCMA Lifetime Achievement Award, and his current areas of interest and research in e-governance, financial administration in educational institution, e-commerce. He has guided 20 PhDs and implemented various educational programs in the Punjab University. So we welcome you, sir. I hope with your discourse today will be entitled with the new vision for education on this earth, to make it more meaningful life. Second speaker, which is a very dynamic, blended with the energy and as well as implementation of new policies of the education in their institution, Dr. Pushpinder Walia, who joined as a principal in BBK DAV College for Women, Amritsar on 31st December 2015. She is BA Honours, MA, MPhil and PhD. Dr. Walia carries a rich academic record as well as experience, including 7-year principal as DAV College for Women, Firozpur. Before joining as principal in Firozpur, she taught in the Department of English, BBK DAV College for Women, Amritsar. She coordinated and initiated various academic and curricular activities. Dr. Pushpinder Walia is a published researcher and has presented her research work abroad at universities of Oxford, Cambridge, Cleveland State University and international conferences in Germany, Hungary, Austria, as well as Scotland. With several research papers and books to her credit, Dr. Walia has also published considerable features on socio-cultural aspects of the city of Amritsar. She has been awarded with several honors at national and international level. Having joined as principal in BBK DAV College for Women, Dr. Pushpinder Walia intends to take the institution further by focusing on innovative program research, ventures and academic excellence. So both of our speakers are very experienced. One is having led a very good life and creative life in the Punjab University and still contributing with great force. And second, she is ambassador of the young generation and guiding the BBK DAV students as well as students of whole Punjab with her writings and research. So I welcome you again, sir, in this program, and I hope both of you will give us more insights regarding the education system and how we can make it more fruitful so that education can become a helpful in leading a meaningful life on this earth. First, I request to Dr. Subhash Vaidya ji to start his discourse. Dr. Subhash Vaidya. Sir, you can unmute yourself. Sir, please. Yes. Thank you.
I wish good evening to all the viewers. And thank you, Ashwani. During last 10 minutes, you have created a very conducive environment for the theme to be handled. Thank you for the nice introduction about me. PCMA, during last 2 months, I'm finding has become very responsive organization. An organization which has volunteered itself. No UGC, no MHRD, no university, but on their own. You have taken so many leads. And Ashwani, I must say, you are very ably supported by team members, Vikash ji and Dr. Singla. And of course, veteran Prem Kumar ji. This series which you have launched, this is 4th version. I had the advantage of listening to all previous speakers, starting from Dr. Mohan, Dr. Lakhvinder, Mr. Jafar, Kulvinder, and Dr. Dharmender. And I have an advantage of avoiding avoidable duplication. Therefore, I will not touch upon those issues which have already been taken by them, but I'll take few issues which have not been touched so far. Have a look at our Indian education ecosystem and the magnitude. Few figures will speak about the magnitude. 33 crore students, 1 crore teachers, 1,000 universities, 46,000 colleges, and 15 lakh schools. It's a massive ecosystem. Okay, and if you look at the magnitude of students, 33 crores is not even the population of very many countries, including US. We have such a massive system to manage and handle. It has been amply proved by scholars in the past that education has a very direct positive correlation with economic development of a nation, and they supplement each other. We need education for development, and having attained development, we need more educational systems at macro level. But at the micro level, as Ashwani and his team, you have been hammering on, education must lead to a happy, gainful employment. Teachers should be joyful, students should be happy, and the pursuits should be achieved in a very conducive manner. This is what theme of this effort is almost being carried out for a couple of weeks. Fact is that presently, most of the education by youngsters is very thickly correlated with placement and jobs. Even parents, they put their children into education thinking that child will be gainfully employed and he will earn his livelihood and seek a career which will make him contented person. This is what primary objective of education is. If we look at education, it has 5 components. What these are? Intent, content, deliverance, examination, and evaluation. In fact, all these components are very intimately interwoven with each other. You cannot single out one and start analyzing it, no. Evaluation has much to do with examination. Content has much to do with intent. If content is not delivered in an effective manner, it becomes meaningless. So all the 5 components are equally important. And if we view education over centuries and decades, we will realize different aspects have been touched at different point in time by the environment. For example, presently, that component which has come under sharp focus these days is delivery part of education. Thanks to COVID, COVID has just pushed education towards another mode of deliverance that is called as online. Online has thrown challenges, very many challenges. In fact, if we look at very, very intimately, online education, personally I feel, is a concept which is inherently throwing value proposition to almost all the parties. If we look at the need for education and if we look at the infrastructure that is available with us, we find that scalability is an issue. We need very many colleges, we need very many teachers, we need very many more universities. And the existing setup is lacking scalability. Therefore, the only answer which comes very handy is putting education online, online education. Online education has thrown not only challenges, but it has thrown even opportunities to teachers. My focus would be on teaching and teachers. Let us see what unique challenges online education has thrown to teachers. For example, first one is, if we are in a physical classroom, if some student is sleeping, not listening to a teacher, he gets identified. Teacher can always shake him up and seek his attention. But in an online environment, getting attention of student and retaining his attention is an issue. And I think this aspect is very, very important. Until and unless interaction, academic interaction is a two-way traffic. If my receiver is on, but my student's receiver is not on, then it's wastage of time. Now, how do a teacher ensure that it is not only attendance, but equally important is attention? How to retain attention of a student is an issue which a teacher need to really find an answer. And I'm very sure teaching fraternity will soon find an answer for this. Second challenge is, how do we ensure the quality of learning which takes place beyond classroom? How do we ensure that students of a class learn from each other? On online, I'm sitting in Chandigarh, all of you are all scattered, okay, and online may not be that conducive a platform to ensure a very effective participation. Having taught almost for 50 years, I am of a firm opinion, a lot of learning in education takes place beyond classroom. And particularly I've seen in management education, students equally learn from each other. A very interesting episode has happened in Harvard Business School recently. It was reported that current class of MBA filed a petition before the Dean of Harvard Business School seeking refund of fee. They say that, look, we are deprived of class participation. We are deprived of a case study discussion amongst ourselves. We have paid fee for this. I think they have got a very winning argument. But then this is a challenge which is thrown by online education. Teacher has to find a solution for this. Another very important, which has to be given a very serious thought. If I am in a classroom with 60 of my students, what is happening in the classroom is always between my students and myself. If I am online, then I should be prepared to forego my freedom of speech. I'm very sure whatever I'm speaking at the moment, Ashwani ji and his team is recording it. Those who are not watching it now will watch it later on. Not only watch it, re-watch it, keep watching it. I think this is a challenge for a teacher. The freedom he has enjoyed till now in a physical classroom environment, he should be prepared to forego that. And teachers must get prepared for this eventuality, because online is an in thing. It is not going to remain a discretionary mode of education. We must prepare ourselves. When a teacher is online, you never know. It is not only student who is watching and listening. Maybe his parents are also peeping and listening. Maybe his children are also watching. They are watching teachers' grammar, voice modulation, pronunciation, clarity about concept. All teachers now need to become mindful of this. How to retain attention, how to forego freedom, how to always remember that it is not 60 students, it could be 600. Time, space, distance become meaningless on online. And if you look at the type of repercussions these three dimensions have, you will find as a teacher, there is a strong challenge, and we must prepare ourselves for that challenge. Of course, another issue which teacher will always be concerned about is digital divide. You know, to listen to a teacher, you as a student in a physical environment, you enter college, you enter classroom, that's all. But if you want to become an audience for an online, you need to have very many other things. Sometimes you may not be able to have these things because of your economic compulsions. At other times, you might be willing to spend, but technology is failing you. You as a teacher, you would never like to discriminate amongst your students, isn't it? You would like all your students benefit whatever you are sharing. But if someone is not able to take benefit of, the most hurtful person would be a teacher. That's another challenge which we really need to address. There is another lurking fear which some of my students are sharing with me. Fear is that in times to come, particularly private institutions, promoters, might start shifting investment from teachers to technology. It's a very serious threat. They say, let me be very sound on technological front. A teacher can come from Canada, he can come from US, he can come from any global best university. I see a challenge in it for a teacher, but I see an opportunity in it. Why should a teacher remain always a distributor of knowledge? Why should not he seize an opportunity and become creator of a content and see to it that it's not class of 60 that becomes his audience, but he has an audience of more than 60 located in different places. Only condition is his content has to be worth it. It has to be par excellence. So here is another opportunity, another challenge for him. Few aspects of education which probably cannot be bounded by present setup of education in terms of curriculum, in terms of syllabi, in terms of other infrastructural facilities. And much of these issues have to do with attitude of a teacher. I really benefited from the discussions we had last time with Mr. Jafar and Dharmender Oba. Oba made it so forcefully in Punjabi language. A teacher, a preacher, and parent. Learning for a student come from these three sources, and all the three are equally important. Mr. Jafar said, it has to be, if a teacher wants a student to be enlightened, a teacher has to be enlightened himself first. If he is not, he cannot imbibe. And mind it, no student would like to learn from a teacher who has stopped learning himself or herself. Student will say, if learning is information, please, lot of it is available on Google. Teacher's role has to be, is undergoing a change. He must inspire. He must now teach students how to learn. That is what is needed, and much of it has to do with attitude of a teacher. And there are issues like ethics and issues like empathy, which cannot be given as a part of curriculum, as a part of syllabi. Ashwani and team, if you permit me, I would like to share something very personal that
Yes.
happened to me, of course, in the realm of academics. It's almost 50 years back in 1970. I came from a small town, Mandi, Himachal Pradesh, and joined MCOM at presently University Business School. A new environment, hostel, living away from parents. Other class fellows we found are probably more sophisticated. Language too was a barrier, and the sophistications among teachers and the whole school was something which became a issue of concern for me as well as 2, 3 colleagues of ours. After a month, we identified a teacher. We felt confident that we can talk to him personally and explain our apprehensions to him. And we identified, I can name him, late Professor Bidhi Chandji. I went to him and explained, sir, these problems are very much personal to me. There is nothing wrong with the system. But I come from a small town. My exposure is not that wide. Sometimes even language is a barrier. And I do not know many things. His immediate response, that was in Hindi, I would like to reproduce it. He said, आपको कुछ आता नहीं है, तभी तो यहाँ हमारे पास आए हो. Look at the response. Look at empathy. He understood that I might not be student with that vast experience and exposure. I have some disadvantages. He understood it. And in one sentence, he said, that is why you are here. Don't worry. I shared this experience of mine with my other class fellows, Dr. Yadav, who later on became chairman of AICT, and Dr. Chiller, who became principal of a college in Chandigarh. I remember a statement given by education. I would like to read it because I will build my argument on this. Someone said, when you have forgotten what you studied for exams, what remains is education. I repeat, when you have forgotten what you studied for exams, what remains is education. It's almost 50 years. I really do not remember economics topics which Professor Bidichan taught me, but I will never forget this gesture of his about empathy towards student. This happened with me 50 years back, but then I took a resolve that, look, I will get an opportunity as a teacher every year. I might find another version of Dr. Vaidya in my classroom. And of course, I used to find, when I was guiding PhD students, and at any point in time, if I have 4 or 5 students, at least one of those PhD students would be from that strata of society. Someone who is disadvantaged, if not economically, but because of exposure, or he or she is from minority community, or he's suffering from or she's suffering from language barrier. I distinctly remember, I will not name them. Both of these students are very, very happily engaged, both of them in 2 different universities. One student from a minority community, no one would be too willing to really enroll. But then I had taken an oath that, look, at least one of my students must come from that strata. He completed his PhD, now teaching in a university. I told him, Your enemy is not your environment. Your enemy is not your system. Your enemy is your deprivals. And if you want to get rid of deprivals, give your time and energy and attention to education. He completed PhD and he is a very joyful teacher. I will not name another student, but I'm too tempted to share that experience of mine. This student, very studious, very hardworking. She can work 20 hours out of 24, but had a very bad problem with language. And I was worried. After all, PhD thesis will go to external examiners. He might be a foreigner. We need to admit that English is a language which is global language. I very politely suggested to her, I will engage a English tuition teacher for you. You know, she very gladly agreed. And believe me, PhD student getting enrolled for English language and learning it. And today I'm very proud that look, she has become a teacher and a very happy teacher in another university. And all these students have directly or indirectly given me a promise that, sir, we will make a change. And it's almost 50 years when I faced this problem and a teacher of mine helped me. I helped a couple of teachers and these teachers in return are helping someone else. And I'm very sure it is not going to be 50 years, maybe another 50 years. This is how it works. And I think this is real education. I do not remember classroom teaching, but I still remember what that professor, great professor, taught me. And taught me with a condition that, look, you can pass it on to others. Similarly, Dr. Dharmender was making a very, very pertinent point. I would like to carry it further. Ethics. Believe me, as a teacher, I have encountered very many problems when it comes to ethical behavior. A student, when he's joining MBA program, he's already 20, 21 years. That's not the age to teach ethics. I think ethics can be taught when he is in a school. Best place to learn ethics is not a university MBA course, but it is his parents, his teachers. If ethics as a curriculum would have really worked globally, we would not encounter a situation. Let me share with you facts and figures. More than 50% of the largest economies of the world are not nation states, but they are corporations. Some of these corporations' annual revenue is much, much more than the GDP of so many nations. Obvious question is, who is controlling whom? Do you think governments are controlling these corporations? Or do you think corporations are controlling so many governments? And this situation creates problems. And problem has to be really solved by teachers. Teachers need to really contribute. Dr. Ashwani,
yes, sir.
You are able to see me.
Yes, yes, sir.
But I'm not able to see you. Anyway, till the time you're come back. Welcome back. Yeah. Another issue which always bothered me as a teacher, we often teach corporate social responsibility, CSR. Even government has laid norms and even law has been made. So much of profit earned need to be spent on corporate social responsibility. I often ask a question to my student. social responsibility has to do much with brain or with heart? I think the obvious answer is it has much to do with heart.
Right.
Can you touch the heart through legislation?
No.
I think this is an issue which needs to be given a thorough analysis by teachers. Before I close, I would like to make two very serious recommendations or suggestions to PCMA.
Ji sir.
One of these is something which is probably implementable at your end, whereas the second one might require a push from your side to higher authorities. First suggestion is, all of us agree that online education is a value proposition to all stakeholders. COVID or no COVID, it has come to stay. In so many years, I'm a strong advocate of concepts like MOOC and SWAYAM, so on and so forth. And teachers now also understand that, look, it has come. It will not go away. Online, not COVID, online. If it is not going to be 100% online, it is going to be a hybrid. Some online, some conventional physical classroom. What is to be online and what is to be offline will not be a discretion given to a teacher. Much will depend upon nature of component of curriculum. Okay, so teacher will not be asked whether you want to be offline or you want to be online. It's not his choice. Only choice is left with is to prepare himself or herself for online. And what I'm finding these days, even these webinars, okay, there is a requirement for online etiquette, how to conduct it. Okay, what is to be avoided and what is to be ensured. At times, very many participants are unmuted. At times, some irrelevant voices are coming. Sometimes teacher is forgetting that thousands are watching him. Sometimes it happens, he is not aware. But then probably a program has to be structured for etiquette and preparing students for this mode. Second, which probably you can do, digital divide will be a very painful thing to happen. A teacher's heart will always go to that student who is probably sitting in a disadvantageous location. A student who might be hit by economic compulsion. A student who might be too willing, but parents may not be able to afford. These issues probably just not wait for the government. Let it be handled by us. Let it be handled by teachers. And let me support my argument by exemplifying. For example, this society I'm associated with, ST Society. Two of its institutions are located in a very disadvantageous location. What area? Gurdaspur, Fatehgarh Chuniya. Girls coming.
That's some voice issue there at your end. I think some disturbance is there in speaker. थोड़ा तुसी आगे हो जाओ, ठीक हो जाएगा. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. You tolerated this adulteration quite a long. You should have
Just
pointed.
for 10 seconds, not more than
Okay,
that.
Just,
okay,
just
okay,
10, just 10 seconds, sir.
okay, okay. Now I want to share with you something which can be done at our level. This society I am associated with, Sanatan Dharma Society, it has very many institutions, and these institutions I mentioned about are providing education to disadvantageous strata of the society. This enlightened management of the society, believe me, very recently, they went 2, 3 steps beyond requirements of UGC and MHRD. They carried out a household survey in that area, finding out those students who do not have a smartphone or a laptop or a desktop in their household, identified them. They found in a household there is a smartphone, but smartphone is taken away by the father or the brother to his office. So there is no second iPhone or smartphone available in the household. And this society is now thinking of pooling some money and finding out a solution for this crisis. This is a crisis, you know. If 10 out of 100 are deprived because they do not have this facility, I think this is something which PCMA and most of the teachers probably we would not like to tolerate it. Okay, so we can think of taking some action on this. Second suggestion, which I think may not be directly within your domain, but which can be passed down effectively by you, because by this time I learned that higher ups, including UGC and MHRD, they hear you and they value your suggestions. This issue is about excessive emphasis on quantifiable parameters of evaluation. See, webinars are available in plenty. Some webinars are only participative. Some webinars are without any certification. Some webinars are paid webinars. Believe me, tomorrow, if UGC makes a provision that any teacher participating in a webinar will get a weightage in their API score for this, the whole complexion of webinars concept will change. You know what is happening at the moment? Webinar organizers are seeking audience.
Yes.
Tomorrow, audience will start seeking you. But irony of the situation is content might remain same, but a simple stroke through legislation makes the whole change.
Dr. Sahab, you have just 1 minute because our second speaker is also waiting.
Okay, right. Second issue is, this publication. It's very painful to hear. Very many institutions are now, advocating that you must publish in ABDC. A student of mine brought to my notice that, sir, if I do 2A or B in 3 months' time, I'll get a promotion. But someone who is not doing even D out of ABDC, he is threatened that your probation period will get extended. Hence, hence the greed for locating co-authors, even if it is for a consideration. Okay, this is something which is worrisome, which is something which is very painful. I will just end up by just quoting someone. There's a lady in US, her name is Jean Kinder. Jean Kinder was hurt by a Domino 30-minute pizza driver. That driver in a haste jumped the red light. And this old lady was hurt on her spine. She sued the company and got compensation for her injury as well as punitive. It taught a lesson to Domino that look, hurrying something has repercussions. Believe me, if we motivate our teachers to hurry up with their publication, and if we start making our teachers something like similar to pizza deliverers, I think in the long run, we all will be losers. In the end, I will say in the whole domain of education, kingpin is teacher. A lot of attention need to be given to a teacher. Good teacher need to be identified and he need to be retained. Good teachers are costly, but not so good teachers cost more. This is a message to promoters of education. With this, I pause and over to you, Dr. Ashwani.
Thank you, Dr. Vaidya, for giving valuable insights regarding various challenges which we are going to encounter in the online system of education, because pandemic or non-pandemic, that is not an issue now, because it has thrown some light on our system and has encouraged us to face these challenges. Rather, it is discipline, retaining students, retaining their attention, getting their attention, quality of learning, collective learning beyond classroom, that needs a very attention of the teachers. They have to mold themselves. Even freedom of speech is going to be affected, because earlier they were just talking to class of 60 students. Now they are talking to 600 or 6,000 students. So you have given certain suggestion. On your first suggestion, we have already worked out. Punjab Commerce and Management Association is going to organize faculty development program on online education, moving towards MOOCs from 10th of July to 16th of July, with the collaboration of various our international experts, Dr. Parvinder Arora, Dr. Mahesh Joshi, Dr. Parveen Gill, who are working in various advanced countries of the world, and how they are retaining their students, how they are running these programs. We are going to listen them for a week now. So definitely, second suggestion, that we have to cope up with the digital divide. Punjab Commerce and Management Association will also work on it. We will conduct certain surveys. We will work for the benefit of the masses, whatever we can do. So thank you very much, sir. Thank you for giving your valuable insights. You are always a very valuable asset for all of us. We have learned from you, because your generation has given so much to us. Now it is our duty to give something to the younger generation, so that this speed of education, this history of education can be repeated times and again. So thank you, sir. So now I request our second speaker, who is a very dynamic and young personality, dwelling with the young generation now and solving their issues, Dr. Pushpinder Walia Sharma, who is a principal of BBK DAV College, Amritsar, to discuss her valuable insights. Thank you, madam.
Yes. Thank you very much, Dr. Bala. I hope I am audible.
Yes.
It's again a great venture on your side to have this wonderful webinar. My topic today is actually directly connected to what you said at the beginning, when you were talking about education and the larger perspective, and how it can help us to lead a good life, meaningful life, and also connects in parts to what Dr. Vaidya talked about as life lessons, that we remember not what we were taught in the classroom, but what we learned beyond the classroom, the lessons of life. So I want to talk today about seeking a fuller life through education. And there is a very beautiful concept that I came across in my discussions here in the seminars and in the interactions that I had abroad. And that concept is of educational integrity. So I just want to speak a little bit about what this concept means about educational integrity. Or for what that matter, does really integrity have a meaning in education and higher education? Actually, these days, as Dr. Vaidya was also talking about, we are more concerned about having education and getting a good job and thinking of life in terms of a good salary. But that's not really the case. As we know, we see unfortunate news about suicides by all these famous actors or stars who have reached the pinnacle of success, seemingly to the outer world. And yet all these tragedies are happening. So definitely there is something beyond worldly success that matters. And that is what education can, in a very meaningful way, give us. For instance, if you think about certain key issues which are an inevitable part of education, that is, what are values and what is value-based education? For this, you know, what I'm going to do is I'm going to, because now I want to make it briefer since we are already almost at 7 p.m. So I would like to divide the discourse into two parts. First of all, I'm going to build a theoretical framework for it. And since I belong to DAV organization, and for more than 2 decades, I have worked in DAV, therefore I'm going to take up the DAV framework as a case study for educational integrity. And for the second part, it's going to be more personal, because everybody has a personal journey, everybody has a personal path in life, and we all learn our own lessons. So I'm going to share a few of those in the second part. But for the first one, when we think about DAV and what its framework is, as we know, it's rooted in Arya Samaj. It is Dayanand Anglo-Vedic institutions. And when we talked about education and having a fuller meaning in life, I think this is a wonderful example of what DAV has done. The DAV vision imbibes the best of both the worlds because it is Dayanand Anglo-Vedic. It is, as you mentioned, Swami Dayanand Saraswati in the beginning, and you know that he was a great reformer of society and a great spiritual thinker and leader. And Anglo-Vedic means that we are imbibing the best of the West, and also our heritage remains very valuable and very precious to us, and our ethos is rooted in our spiritual heritage of the Vedas. So when we talked about Arya Samaj, it is how you can make the society best. Arya is best, and Samaj is society. So when we talked about Arya Samaj in the beginning, and we related it to educational integrity, this is what I want to say, that there are 10 principles of Arya Samaj, and only the first 3 are rooted actually in our search for God. The rest of them, right from the 4th principle to the 10th one, are about what role an educated person or a good Arya should play in society. And that is what leads to a meaningful life. When Swami Dayanand passed away in 1883, his followers wanted to do something to promote his memory and his teachings forever. And what better way could there be than to do something in the field of education? And that is how the first school in Lahore was formed in 1886. And it was a very remarkable young man, Hans Raj, who came forward and volunteered to be the principal of that school, totally without salary throughout the time that he served there. And this remarkable young man later on came to be known as Mahatma Hans Raj. So in a way, proving that you cannot teach just by words, but you have to be a living example for others. So in the remaining principles of Arya Samaj, after the first 3, we talked about how an Arya should be ready to accept truth and to renounce untruth, and how all actions must conform to virtue, and how the primary object is to benefit the whole world, and how ignorance must be dispelled, and nobody should be contented with the good alone, but with the good of all. I want to talk about one particular thing. Now, DAV has got more than 900 institutions all over the country. But there is one thing that I want to mention here. Rather, I want to read aloud from the manifesto of Arya Samaj, and how, when DAV institutions were set up, this manifesto, I think, is the most complete statement on education in any ideology in any part of the world. So I'm going to read out from there. It will be conceded by all right-thinking minds that to secure the best advantages of education, it is necessary to make it national and character. No doubt, speaking broadly, the primary aim of education is to develop the mental faculties, to invigorate them, and to practice them by proper and healthy exercise. And education is said to be sound according as it achieves these ends. But however true and incontrovertible this might be in the abstract, this single criterion of education is far from the true ideal of useful education. For it may be taken for granted, independently of theological considerations, that man lives and ought to live not for himself alone, but also for the good of the community in which he moves, and of which by birth, locality, and antecedents, he is a member. This is termed his nationality. In fact, the system of education should be so devised as to strengthen the ties which naturally bind individuals into a common nationality. On the other hand, it is clear that a process of education which tends to loosen these ties or obstructs the beneficent influence of education from being fairly extended to and beneficially operating upon the uneducated must be declared partial and, from the public point of view, undesirable. This actually connects us to what the goals of NAC and UGC now are, and what the vision of the national policy of education is. According to UGC and NAC also, the two major aims of education are contribution to national development, and secondly, inculcating a value system among students by incorporating value-added standard practices in the process of education. I think with this kind of a framework, it is very important that we teach students leadership practices, as we do in our campus in community development programs, and we also teach them strategic planning. So what I have learned as a principal in DAV College Firozpur, as well as in BBK DAV Amritsar, is that it is your community development initiatives that really create all those virtues of humanity that we have been talking about: empathy, humanity, ethics, a sense of compassion, generosity, kindness. All these do come about in a very dynamic way when students interact with the less privileged people, be they old age homes, you find abandoned old people. I remember when we sent our first team out to an old age home, the students came back with tears in their eyes, and they said that, ma'am, we are going to ensure that in our life, if we can help it, no old person should ever be abandoned by his children. And definitely we will take care of the older people in our own families. I think this will happen only once they see that thing in reality, when they go and see the situation in the old age home. Similarly, when they go to the slum areas for the community work and they see how those children are struggling to get education. And these our students feel that they are privileged enough, to have a good college and to have all these, good practices here and access to all the latest technology. Then they realize that, yes, they are privileged. So I think living a situation is definitely more meaningful than actually just being told about it or reading about it. And now, if I want to carry on in this stream, I would like to take a cue from our Honorable President, Sir, in DAV, Dr. Poonam Suri, who comes from a very venerated Arya Samaj family. And whenever he gives a talk, he always ends it or intersperses it with anecdotes from his personal life experiences or from experiences he has learned from philosophers and teachers. So this is something which really touches me. And now I'm going to move on to the the second part of my talk, which is about what in my journey of life I have learned about education and about teaching. The first thing that I want to say, and which maybe many of us are realizing now in this COVID situation, is that we must learn to enjoy our own company. If you are frustrated in your own company, then you're never going to find joy anywhere else. And the joy of your own company comes mostly through reading. When I was a child, I used to read one book a day. And reading made my childhood so beautiful. And I want to talk about that now because I'm sure many of you have small children, or many of you are good readers and have these beautiful memories. And I want to talk about how reading shapes you. At least I'm talking about myself, how it shaped my mind, or how it shaped me as a person who I am today. I feel that reading gives a new world to the reader. If you are you live only one life. But if you read, you live many lives. I think that's the beauty of it, that when you enter the realm of a book, you enter a different world and you pass through that journey. And when you close a good book after having finished it, it's like you have lived a life. And when you begin another book, it's like leading into another world. So I think that's a very beautiful thing about reading. And when I was a child, what I read really shaped my sense of right and wrong. For instance, I used to read a lot of Enid Blyton. And Enid Blyton, I think, on the surface, these are children's stories, fun stories, adventure stories. But if you read, between the lines, she's also talking about what is good, what is bad, what is truth, what is not truth, in the sense that what are the good practices to follow in life. One should be good, one should be kind, and all these kind of things come out naturally in the stories. So that is something which is happening unconsciously. When a child is reading, the child is forming a value system at the back of one's mind. And I think reading is something that every parent should encourage a child to do. As they say, there is no app better than a mother's lap. I think every mother should make it a practice to read to her children. And when the children grow up, I think they become avid readers and they become avid thinkers. Another thing I learned through my reading is that reading gives you a lot of understanding about human nature. I think literature and psychology are so very closely connected. I think Shakespeare was one of the most wonderful psychologists that have ever been there in this world. If you read his characters and you study his characters, you find that, he really delves into the human mind. For instance, I mean, if he's talking about human dilemma and he's talking about Hamlet, and Hamlet is talking about to be or not to be, that is the question about, how difficult it is to take these, life-changing decisions, you find that, yes, that's true. If you read Robert Frost, The Road Not Taken, you find out again something about decision. And yes, I think Dr. Bhalla, you were talking about how teachers today are, unfortunately, into teaching by chance, not by choice. There is a very beautiful poem by Frost when he talks about when my vocation and my avocation, make one in sight, just like my two eyes do, then, that is the real profession, in the sense that if I am, whatever I'm doing for a vocation is also what I like to do as a passion, then I think that passion and that vocation, the mingling of that makes my life so beautiful and makes it very, very meaningful. If we are teachers, we are in education in some way or the other, and we love it. We love being here. We love communicating to our students. We love touching and shaping their minds and involving them. I think that makes the journey of every educationist very beautiful and very rich. Again, something that talking about humanity came to me was that, a couple of months back, I think maybe 1.5 months before the COVID crisis started, we had this very beautiful experience of organizing an international conference on Guru Nanak Dev Ji's philosophy and teachings. And it was an ICCSSR sponsored conference. We had the funds, but not that many, that we could sponsor too many international speakers. So we had these two American professors who wanted to come from Brigham Young University. And we had this lady teacher who wanted to come from Germany, but we could sponsor only one of them. And we told very politely to the American professors that, you know, we do not have the funds to sponsor you. You will be surprised. Those people from that far off, they said, and they had absolutely, you know, one of them had not been to India at all. And the other lady had also been there just once. So both of them, they said, we don't want any money. We don't even want that you should cover our journey from Delhi to Amritsar. We just want that we should reach Amritsar and be a part of this conference and learn something about the wonderful spiritual Guru, Guru Nanak Dev Ji. That was such a beautiful thing to say. And then there was this one American couple who said very humbly, can we just come and listen? We just want to learn more about the Sikhs and the Punjabis and their culture. Such humility. And you know, there must be something that we are all doing right here in India or in our culture that, you know, this reaches out to people at large in the world. And I felt in the conference, I really felt that like Guru Nanak Dev Ji had gone out to the, you know, so many different of the world to spread the word of God. Now that it was its conference, people from all across the world wanted to come and attend. I think that was so beautiful. So this is what real education is. When you open the horizons of your mind and you let the whole world come in, I think that is what really matters. Another thing which I would like to talk about is about what has this COVID crisis really taught us. This is again connecting to what Dr. Bhala said initially about how we all seem to have joined some rat race, you know, in society, how one person wanting to, you know, outdo the other. One thing that COVID, I feel, has taught us all is steady the pace and lead the race. Just steady, steady, steady. And this actually thought came to me that John Donne, the famous English poet, once talked about society. And he said, it's a very famous quote actually by him, no man is an island. You know, in England, there used to be a practice in the, especially in the villages, in the churches, that if somebody died in the village, the bell in the church would ring in the evening. It would toll in the evening. And everybody in the village would then know that somebody's died, and they would ask each other, for whom is the bell tolling? John Donne wrote something beautiful on that. He said, no man is an island. We, all of us, are a part of one another. And therefore, he said, whenever one person dies, it's a loss for all of us. And he said, never ask again for whom the bell tolls, because it tolls for thee. It tolls for you. It tolls for you and me. I think in the COVID crisis, we have all learned this, that no one exists as an independent entity. We are all connected. And this world is not created just for us. It is created for all creatures, big and small. They have as much a right to it as we have as human beings. So when Guru Nanak Dev Ji talked about Sarvatta Bhala, or when in the Vedas they talk about Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinam, now we have learned that these are not just words. If the whole world prospers, or if the society around me prospers, only then I prosper. If the world around me is healthy, only then I am healthy. If the world around me is sick or tired or ailing or infected, how can I be safe? I think this is the most clear lesson that has come to us. You know, all these thoughts, they come to you when you read, when you introspect, and it's a sad thing that has happened, COVID. But on the other hand, I think it has also taught us to think, to stop. It's like a pause button on life. You know, I really felt when this happened, and I'm sure so many of you must have felt the same, that the pause button had been pressed. And all the countries in every part of the world, people had to pause. They had to think. They had to sit with their families. They had to reconnect with their old bonds, human relationships. They kind of got a new life. And all of us also, like Dr. Vaidya was saying, that this COVID has taught us about how challenging things are. But I think it's also talked to us about how opportunities are there. So many opportunities are there for us. Webinar is one part of it. All these things that are happening, we are listening to one another, talking to one another, communicating to each other, with each other. All these things are now part of the new normal, you know, what you call it. This is the new normal that we want, because human beings, as Dan said, they are not islands. They have to connect. So this kind of interaction that we are having now through this webinar is also a need for human interaction. We all need one another. So this lesson, I think, has been driven home by the COVID crisis. And another thing that I think about education is, when we talk about the suicides happening or the bad things happening, people destroying themselves or people destroying others, terrorism, I think we have underrated the spiritual power of humanity. We have underrated the power of our scriptures and of our teachers, and who taught us about these values and about, you know, whatever spiritual leanings each of us may individually have. But we have learned now that we need to tap that inner strength. What is spirituality? It is what your inner strength is. It is what makes you gain confidence in yourself, in your life. It is what teaches you to be positive about life. I think that needs to be tapped. And if we are spiritually strong, means our inner strength is there, then of course we are there to face every situation. Otherwise, people whose roots are not strong, we have seen that, you know, they will crumble under any pressure. And we have to teach ourselves, we have to teach our students that their roots should be so strong that they may go anywhere in the world, and maybe in whatever situation they are, they have to give it their best. They cannot give up without a fight. And I think they should not give up ever. And that is, I think, what all these situations that are being created around us are telling us. There's a very nice song that we have in our college. When we install the Students' Council, we sing this song. We call it the Mangal Kamna song. And it talks about Akhand Jyoti Gyan Ki, Sada Jale, Sada Jale. You know, it talks about how the light of knowledge should always burn bright. And there's a line in that which says, Jeevan mein jab bhi andhakar ho, you know, you should take the support of this light. And I think that is so true, because whenever you feel that life is all darkness, there are only bad things happening, you need to break that chain and either read something nice or see something nice, you know, and meaningful, or you have to break that chain of negative thinking. And on a larger level, you will see that girls, especially, you know, women and girls, they have encountered so many social obstacles and social deprivation through education. If we are anywhere here today, we are because of education. How can a poor girl in society rise today? By education. She can become anything. There is no barrier. She can touch the skies. There is no barrier to it. So I think education in so many ways is strength. It is power, you know, it is your spiritual strength. It is your inner power. And it also is a wonderful connection to spirituality. So I think COVID crisis has really unleashed that inner potential in all of us. We did not realize that we were so strong. We did not realize that we had so much within us to keep us going. And the times ahead may be difficult, but all of us we'll get through it, we'll pass through it. It is time actually to bring back that sense of humanity, to bring back that compassion, and to know that we all belong to one another and that we will all survive through it. I think education in that sense is the real power. Thank you so much for having me here. It was wonderful
Thank
being
you.
here.
Thank you, Dr. Pushpinder Walia ji, for giving right insight at the right time now. Because both of the lectures, Dr. Vaidya's discourse and your discourse, need more readings, because this is not going to that we are here just heard about all these things and now we should forget. We should listen it again and again. And after 1 hour of this lecture, you can see it on our YouTube channel. This will be available on that. We must listen again and again. You have given the rightful strategies for that, that we have to improve our educational integrity. We have to make our joy of our companies. Most important thing, even Dr. Jaswant Jafar emphasized on that. Most of the teachers complain that students do not study, और इवन पेरेंट्स से दैट उनके बच्चे पढ़ते नहीं हैं. तो उन्होंने बड़ा अच्छा जवाब दिया था कि स्टूडेंट्स इसलिए नहीं पढ़ते कि बिकॉज टीचर्स डू नॉट रीड. Teachers are not reading books, they are just focusing on their lectures. If they are themselves not reading good books, how they can translate the educational meaning to their students? So we have to develop a culture of reading, because when you are just delivering lecture and preparing from here and there, you are just preparing for yourself, for your class only. But when you read more and more books, I think you are encountering with so many people and your insights are improving day by day. So literature is one thing. We must read literature these days. You have talked about many things about this pandemic situation and how spiritually we can come out of that. You referred Swami Dayanand Saraswati. Even I in the beginning referred Swami Dayanand Saraswati, because from 1824 to 1883, whatever the lessons of teaching, role of teachers has prescribed by Swami Dayanand Saraswati, and even after that from 1863 to 1902 by Swami Vivekanand, and even by Guru Nanak Dev Ji from till 1539. So I think those lessons are very, very important for us. We need not to go anywhere in the world to find out the real meaning of the education for leading a good life. Our sculptures, our books, holy books has written so many things, and they are so advanced that we need more research on this. So thank you very much, Dr. Vaidya, and also Dr. Pushpinder ji. So now I refer to Vikas Deep ji for delivering the vote of thanks and concluding this session.
Thank you very much, sir. Respected Dr. S.C. Vaidya ji, Dr. Pushpinder Walia ji, Dr. Ashwini Bhalla ji, our esteemed guests and participants, a very good evening once again to everybody. I hope like we had a long session and it was so mesmerizing, like I couldn't see at the time, and मेरे को ये लग रहा था कि like it should continue, like it should be a never ending thing, and more or less like rather I'm more happy because we had a vision. मेरे को ये लग रहा है तो Dr. Ashwini Bhalla ji, like we had started with a vision that we must do something to change like what education means to us, and I think we are on the right path. We have been able to like relate people with us on this journey, and every day we have more number of people, we have more comments, people they are getting more rather I'll say emotional on these issues, that they are now understanding what real education is. Now coming to formal vote of thanks. First of all, I would like to thank Professor S.C. Vaidya for his beautiful and wonderful discourse, sir. The important takeaways for me is, I think the first and foremost is like the way you started, that there is a positive correlation between the economic development of any nation and education. So that means like whatever indicators we have, GDP or anything like that, but education is the primary indicator for the economic health of any nation. Then like you talked about scalability, then you talked about different challenges, and the real role of an educator is from distributor to a creator. I think that is the crux of whole thing, what does real education means, and talking about ethics and CSR and like empathy. I think empathy is a major issue. Like if we are not empathetic, what is happening to our students will not be able to create a meaningful society. Then, sir, like you talked about other things, like you suggested, you made certain suggestions to PCMA. Certainly, like we'll work upon that within the constraints, whatever constraints we have, we'll try to do our best. And thank you so much, sir. Thanks for sparing your valuable time. Thank you so much, Dr. Pushpinder Walia ji, for your wonderful discourse. Like it was like a relish dish from a true English language speaker, and so deep, insightful thoughts as a listener. Like you talked about educational integrity, you talked about leadership development and community building, and living a situation is more meaningful. I think that's a great, wonderful idea. Then like mingling vocation and passion, I think that will make the education real. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, both the speakers. Once again, I'm thankful to our participants and listeners over the Facebook. I think right now we have more than 4,000 listeners on the Facebook, those who are joined with us, and like a lot of participants on the YouTube and sorry, on this Zoom platform. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you, everybody. Over to Dr. Shmibal.
I would just like to give reply to Dr. Vaidya's comment that we need to have a retention of the audience. And sir, I'm just sharing with you that during this course of the program, the audience remains intact and it never loses their patience. And in Facebook also, we have received large number of comments, and the scroll was going on the different groups. I think on my record, around 20 shares in different groups has been made by different people. So this is a good thing that people started listening to the good people, and I think if this continues, we will be able to start the revolution which we want to bring in education. So thank you very much, Dr. Vaidya. Thank you very much, Dr. Pushpinder ji. We will continue getting your support in our mission. Our mission is not anything just to create awareness among the people that what is the real meaning of education and how can we improve education for meaningful life. This is the only purpose, nothing else. So thank you very much. Thank you, Vikas. Now we can end the meeting. Thank you, Dr.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Sir, can we formally close the meeting
Yes,
now?
yes, yes.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, everybody.